Today, we are looking at 6 horror movies where breaking a rule triggers a curse. These are stories about adult characters who made one simple mistake, ignored one vital warning, and unleashed an inescapable nightmare that they couldn't undo. Every culture has its warnings. Don't look back in the dark, don't enter forbidden ground, and don't ignore the warnings of the locals. But in the world of horror, some rules aren't meant to be. Let's look at our first broken warning. The Hallow. Directed by Corin Hardy in 2015, The Hallow opens with British botanist Adam Hitchens arriving at a remote Irish mill house with his wife Claire and their infant son Finn. He has been hired to survey an ancient forest bordering their property for a future logging operation. Before he unpacks, his nearest neighbor, Colm Donnelly, delivers one message: stay out of the forest. The local villagers repeat that same warning in town. An old book Colm leaves behind is filled with accounts of creatures called the hallow, ancient beings from Irish folklore said to inhabit the trees and punish any outsider who trespasses on their ground. Adam dismisses every word as rural superstition and walks back into the forest anyway. Deep in the woods, he finds a deer carcass covered in thick black ooze, collects a sample, and carries it home. The substance is a parasitic fungal infection, and it begins seeping through the ceiling directly onto Finn's crib. That night, shadowy creatures emerge from the tree line and besiege the house, moving through the darkness with terrifying purpose. During the assault, they steal Finn from his crib and replace him with a changeling. Adam identifies the imposter, but Claire refuses to believe him. In the chaos, a creature drives its stinger into Adam and injects him with fungal spores, and his body begins to mutate as blackened veins spread outward from the wound. Adam forces himself into the creature's underground cave to retrieve the real Finn, while Claire fights through the forest alone. Colm turns Claire away at gunpoint, admitting the hallow took his own daughter Cora years earlier. Inside the cave, Adam finds a fully transformed Cora holding the real baby. He battles through the horde, retrieves Finn, and reunites with Claire at dawn. Sunlight destroys the changeling on contact, confirming everything Adam refused to believe when it could still have saved him. One creature delivers a fatal wound before retreating into the trees, and Claire escapes with the real Finn as Adam dies beside her, the price paid in full for breaking the one rule this ancient forest never forgave. The First Omen. Directed by Arkasha Stevenson in 2024, The First Omen drops us into Rome in 1971, where a young American named Margaret Dano travels to the Visordelli orphanage to take her vows as a nun. Cardinal Lawrence, played by Bill Nighy, is the man who brought her there, and from the moment she arrives, something about the place sits wrong. She takes a particular interest in Carlita, a teenage orphan the sisters treat with cruelty and suspicion, isolating her and punishing her visions rather than trying to understand them. Margaret begins digging and finds a secret chamber beneath the orphanage, stuffed with files all bearing the name Sienna, photographs of misshapen newborns, each one marked with 3 6s somewhere on the body. Father Brennan pulls her aside and lays out what she is looking at. A faction buried deep inside the church has spent years engineering the birth of the Antichrist. Losing political ground to a secular world, these men decided the answer was to force prophecy by using a consecrated woman as a vessel, tearing through every vow and every boundary the faith is built on. What stops Margaret cold is finding her own photograph in those files. She was never a random placement. She was raised inside this system, selected from birth, and the night Luz took her dancing was not a night out at all. She was drugged and assaulted while unconscious, and is already pregnant by the time she understands what happened. Luz, her own roommate, is part of the conspiracy. Before Margaret can run, she is seized and strapped to a table in a candlelit room packed with the cult. Lawrence presides as she is cut open and delivers twins, a boy and a girl. The boy is what they came for. Luz drives a blade into Margaret, and the group takes the infant and burns the room behind them. Carlita gets Margaret and her daughter out alive. The boy is passed to an American diplomat named Robert Thorne, whose wife has been told her baby died, sealing the birth of Damien exactly as the 1976 film begins. Margaret survives and hides in the mountains until Brennan finds her with one warning: they are coming. Some rules exist because the cost of breaking them is a curse the entire world will carry. It Follows. Directed by David Robert Mitchell in 2014, It Follows puts 19-year-old Jay in suburban Detroit on what starts as a perfectly ordinary date with a boy named Hugh. After the two sleep together in his car, Hugh chloroforms her. Jay comes round strapped to a wheelchair in a derelict building, with Hugh crouched in front of her explaining what he just did. By sleeping with her, he transferred a curse. A shape-shifting entity will now walk toward her at a slow, steady pace without stopping. It can look like anyone, a stranger or someone she loves, and only the person carrying the curse can see it. The single rule that governs it is brutal in its simplicity. Pass it to someone else through sex, or it will find you and kill you. If it kills the person you passed it to, it turns around and comes back for you next. Jay tells her sister Kelly, and their tight circle of friends, and none of them can see what she describes. It appears at her school as a tall, expressionless man cutting through a crowd. It shows up in her bedroom in the night, wearing the body of an old woman. Her friend Greg agrees to sleep with her, to pull the curse onto himself and give her breathing room. Days pass, and nothing comes for him. Then one morning, it enters his house, wearing the face of his own mother, and kills him, and the curse swings straight back to Jay. Her friends devise a plan around a public swimming pool where they position electrical equipment in the water to electrocute the entity when Jay draws it in close enough. It arrives wearing the shape of her father. It reads the trap, overturns the equipment into the pool, and goes for Jay directly. Paul fires at it and appears to hit it, and it drops. Nobody in the group can confirm it is dead. Paul and Jay sleep together that night, and the final shot shows them walking down the street side by side while a figure moves behind them at a fixed distance. The rule never changed from the first night. Break it carelessly, and whatever follows, you will follow everyone you love. The Skeleton Key. Directed by Ian Softly in 2005, The Skeleton Key takes place deep in the Louisiana bayou, where 25-year-old hospice worker Caroline Ellis answers a newspaper ad to care for an elderly stroke victim named Ben Devereaux at a crumbling plantation estate. His wife Violet hands Caroline a skeleton key that opens every room in the house except one locked attic space, which she is told to leave alone. Caroline picks that lock anyway. Inside she finds an old phonograph, ritual candles, jars of strange ingredients, and a hand-drawn diagram labeled The Circle of Supreme Protection. She learns the house has a history rooted in hoodoo, a form of folk magic practiced in the American South, and that two practitioners named Papa Justify and Mama Cecile were lynched there by the plantation owners decades earlier after being caught performing a ceremony with their children. Caroline grows convinced that Violet has used hoodoo to harm Ben and begins working to undo whatever was done to him. She performs protective rituals, consults a specialist, and obtains ingredients to build her own counterspell. What she does not realize is that she is being guided into belief step by step by Violet herself. The locked attic room was left locked precisely to make her want to open it. The key was given to invite her curiosity. Every discovery was placed for her to find. The rule of hoodoo that the film makes plain is absolute. The magic cannot touch you unless you believe in it. Caroline arrived a skeptic, and every calculated move Violet made was designed to erode that disbelief. By the time Caroline understands the full truth, it is already too late. Papa Justify and Mama Cecile never died. For over a century, they have been jumping from body to body, using the ritual to preserve themselves, and Violet and the lawyer Luke were their most recent hosts. Luke's body holds the soul of Papa Justify. Violet's holds Mama Cecile. The ritual Caroline was steered into performing transfers the souls of Justify and Cecile directly into her body and Ben's. Caroline ends up loaded into an ambulance trapped inside Violet's dying shell, while Justify and Cecile walk away wearing her youth. The rule that destroyed her was the one she broke without knowing it existed. The moment she believed, the curse already had her. What Josiah Saw. Directed by Vincent Grashaw in 2021, What Josiah Saw unfolds across 3 chapters on a decaying farm on Willow Road, where the Graham family buried something the town has been whispering about for decades. Everyone steers clear of the property. The reason is the willow tree in the garden where the mother, Miriam, hanged herself years earlier. Her youngest son Tommy still lives on the farm with his father Josiah, a hard and God-fearing man played by Robert Patrick, who tells Tommy one morning that Miriam came to him in the night. She is burning in hellfire. She told him the whole family will burn with her unless they right the wrongs they buried on this land. The film then splits. Chapter 2 follows Eli, Tommy's twin brother, a convicted sex offender drowning in debt who falls into a violent trap with a Romani family after cheating them at cards. Chapter 3 follows their sister Mary, who carries a trauma she has never spoken about, and whose new family life begins to crack open when the past presses back in. An oil company wants to buy the farm, and that money is the thing that finally pulls all three siblings back to Willow Road after more than 20 years apart. When Eli and Mary arrive, they find Tommy talking openly to a man they cannot see. He is talking to Josiah. The siblings pull Tommy aside and tell him what he has never been allowed to know. Josiah has been dead for 23 years. They killed him together as children after he burned Tommy's ear with a hot iron, beat Eli until he bled, and sexually abused Mary until she fell pregnant. Their mother hanged herself when she discovered the pregnancy. The three children buried both Josiah and the infant in the garden and never spoke of it again. Eli pries open a chest, and the bones confirm every word. Tommy cannot accept it. He picks up an axe and kills both Eli and Mary before the night is done. Outside the farmhouse, the willow tree catches fire and burns with the words carved into the wood, "Sins paid in full." The rule Miriam delivered from beyond the grave was never optional. Bury your sins, and the curse buries you with them. A Dark Song. Directed by Liam Gavin in 2016, A Dark Song follows Sophia Howard, a grieving mother who rents a remote house in the Welsh countryside and pays £80,000 to hire a foul-tempered occultist named Joseph Solomon to guide her through the Abramelin operation, one of the most demanding magical rituals documented in the Western occult tradition. Solomon lays out the terms from the first day. Once they step inside and the salt circle is sealed around the property, they cannot leave under any circumstances until the ritual reaches completion. The process will take months. Sophia must fast, abstain from alcohol, endure physical ordeals, and above everything else, she must be completely honest. Deception of any kind will cause the ritual to fail and leave them both exposed to whatever they have disturbed. Sophia agrees to every condition. Then she lies. She tells Solomon her reason for performing the ritual is to speak with her dead 7-year-old son. That part is true. What she hides is the real request she intends to make when contact is established. She does not want to hear her son's voice. She wants her guardian angel to damn the souls of the teenagers who murdered him. Solomon discovers the deception deep into the ritual after months of grueling work have already been burned through. He is furious because her dishonesty has contaminated everything they built. He forces a reset, adding a forgiveness ceremony that Sophia refuses to perform, and the fractures between them widen into violence. During one cleansing ritual, Solomon holds Sophia underwater until she drowns, then resuscitates her. In the chaos that follows, he falls onto a large kitchen knife, and the wound festers. Solomon dies before the ritual can be completed. Sophia is now alone inside a sealed house she cannot leave, surrounded by demons she helped summon and cannot control. She breaks the salt circle in desperation and walks out, only to find herself standing at her own front door again. The house will not release her. Demons tear through the rooms, and her son's voice calls to her from behind a locked door. In the end, Sophia abandons her desire for vengeance and asks instead for the strength to forgive. A radiant angelic figure appears, and the darkness lifts. She walks out into daylight, the ritual finally finished. Every horror that consumed those months traced back to the one rule she broke on the very first day. The ritual demands truth, and she brought it a lie. That is the list. 6 films, 6 rules broken, 6 curses that refused to stay quiet once they were triggered. If you want our 2 strongest recommendations from this lineup, go straight to A Dark Song and The Hallow. If you survived these 6 movies, tell us in the comments which movie's curse is your literal worst nightmare. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more horror deep dives just like this one, and we will see you in the next one.